As the sun began to set, Emily, a proud military veteran, gazed upon the American flag that proudly stood in her front yard. Little did she know, a looming confrontation with her HOA president, Karen, was about to shatter the peace. Emily's refusal to take down the flag would ignite a fiery battle, pitting a determined citizen against a tyrannical HOA regime. The clash was about to become the stuff of legends. Emily had served her country with honor, having completed 3 tours overseas. Now, she was determined to display her patriotism in the comfort of her own home. The flag that waved in her front yard was a symbol of the freedoms she had fought to protect. But Emily's neighbor, Karen, the ruthless president of the Homeowners Association, had a different view. As she strolled down the street, the flag caught her eye, immediately triggering her disdain. Unacceptable, Karen muttered under her breath. That flag has to go. Without hesitation, Karen marched up to Emily's doorstep and rang the bell. When Emily answered, Karen launched into her tirade. "Emily, I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to take down that flag immediately," Karen demanded, her eyes narrowed with authority. Emily stood her ground, her military training kicking in. "Excuse me. This is my property, and that flag is staying right where it is." "Not if it violates the HOA bylaws. It's not," Karen retorted, her voice dripping with condescension. "The guidelines clearly state that any outdoor displays must be approved by the association. That flag is an eyesore, and it needs to come down." Emily felt her blood boil. "This flag represents the sacrifices I've made for our country. I won't take it down, Karen. Not now, not ever." Karen's lips curled into a sneer. "Then I'm afraid I'll have to take this to the next level. You have 24 hours to remove that flag, or I'll be forced to take legal action." With that, Karen turned on her heel and stormed off, leaving Emily seething with anger and determination. She knew she had to stand her ground, no matter the cost. The next day, Emily received a formal letter from the HOA, demanding that she remove the flag within 48 hours or face hefty fines. Undaunted, she decided to organize a veterans ceremony in her front yard, inviting the entire neighborhood to witness her defiance. As the appointed day arrived, Emily's yard was filled with the sounds of patriotic music and the voices of fellow veterans, all gathered to show their support. Karen, fuming with rage, marched up to Emily's doorstep once again, her face twisted with a mixture of outrage and disbelief. "Emily, I'm warning you. Take that flag down, or there will be consequences," Karen hissed. Emily stood tall, her medals glinting in the afternoon sun. "This flag stays, Karen, and if you try to take it down, you'll have to go through all of us." The tension in the air was palpable as the two women faced off, their clash a testament to the larger battle between individual freedom and the tyranny of a homeowners association. The stage was set for an epic showdown, with the fate of the American flag hanging in the balance. The air crackled with tension as Karen glared at Emily, her eyes narrowed with undisguised fury. The veteran ceremony had drawn a crowd of neighbors, all of whom now watched the confrontation unfold with bated breath. "Emily, this is your last warning. Take that flag down, or I'll have no choice but to take legal action," Karen spat, her voice trembling with barely contained rage. Emily stood her ground, her posture ramrod straight. "I'm not going to let you bully me, Karen. This flag represents everything I fought to protect, and I won't back down." The crowd erupted in cheers, their applause drowning out Karen's response. Frustrated, she whirled around and stormed back to her car, muttering under her breath. As the ceremony continued, Emily couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. The outpouring of support from her fellow veterans and neighbors was overwhelming. It was a testament to the power of standing up for what's right, even in the face of adversity. But Karen was not about to give up that easily. The next day, Emily received a certified letter from the HOA's legal team, informing her that she was in violation of the association's bylaws and faced a daily fine of $500 until the flag was removed. Emily's heart sank, but her resolve only hardened. She knew that this was about more than just a flag. It was a battle for her freedom, her right to express her patriotism, and the principles she had fought to defend. Determined to fight back, Emily reached out to a local veterans organization, seeking their support. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within days, a team of veteran volunteers had descended on her neighborhood, ready to stand shoulder to shoulder with her in the face of Karen's relentless onslaught. As the fines began to accumulate, Emily's mailbox started to overflow with envelopes containing donations from supportive neighbors and strangers alike. The outpouring of community support only fueled her determination, and she knew that she had to win this battle, not just for herself, but for all those who had sacrificed so much to protect the freedoms she now fought to defend. The stage was set for an epic showdown, with Emily and her army of veterans pitted against the tyrannical HOA regime led by the unyielding Karen. The outcome would have far-reaching consequences, not just for Emily's flag, but for the very ideals that had shaped her life and the lives of countless others who had served their country. The fines continued to mount, but Emily refused to back down. Each envelope containing the $500 penalty only fueled her determination, her pride, and her sense of righteous indignation. As the days turned into weeks, the battle lines were drawn, and the entire neighborhood became embroiled in the conflict. Neighbors took sides, some siding with Emily and her veteran supporters, while others, swayed by Karen's relentless campaign, demanded that the flag be taken down. "This is an outrage," Karen shouted at the next HOA meeting, her face flushed with anger. "Emily's blatant disregard for our bylaws is tearing this community apart. We can't allow her to get away with this." The other board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats, sensing the growing unease among the residents. Some tried to reason with Karen, suggesting the compromise, but she refused to budge. "This flag is a symbol of everything that's wrong with this country," Karen spat, her voice dripping with venom. "It represents the very ideals that are destroying our way of life. It has to come down, and Emily needs to be held accountable." The meeting dissolved into chaos, with tempers flaring and voices raised. Nearby, a group of Emily's veteran supporters had gathered, their eyes narrowed with determination. "We won't let them take that flag down," one of the veterans, a grizzled former Marine, growled. "Emily's fought for this country, and we'll fight for her." As the sun set on the divided community, Emily sat in her living room, her eyes trained on the flag that fluttered proudly in the evening breeze. She knew that the battle was far from over, but she also knew that she could not, and would not, give in to Karen's demands. "This is my home, my country, and my flag," Emily whispered, her voice resolute. "And I'll be damned if I let anyone take it away from me." Across town, Karen paced her living room, her mind racing with schemes and strategies. She was not about to let Emily's defiance go unchallenged. She would do whatever it took to bring that flag down, even if it meant going to war with the entire neighborhood. The stage was set for a titanic clash, with the fate of the American flag and the very ideals it represented hanging in the balance. The outcome would reverberate far beyond the confines of this small community, becoming a symbol of the ongoing struggle between individual freedom and the forces of oppression. As the fines continued to accumulate, Emily's determination only grew stronger. She knew that she was fighting not just for her own principles, but for the ideals that her fellow veterans had sacrificed so much to protect. One evening, as Emily was preparing for another veterans ceremony in her front yard, a black SUV pulled up in front of her house. To her surprise, a group of uniformed police officers stepped out, their faces grim. "Ma'am, we've received a complaint from the Homeowners Association," the lead officer announced, his voice formal. "We're here to ensure the flag is taken down." Emily's heart raced, but she refused to show any signs of fear. "Officer, this flag represents the sacrifices I've made for this country. I won't take it down, no matter what the HOA says." The officer hesitated, visibly uncomfortable with the situation. "Ma'am, I understand your position, but we have to enforce the law. If you don't take the flag down, we'll have no choice but to arrest you." Before Emily could respond, a loud cheer erupted from the crowd of veterans who had gathered in her front yard. They surged forward, forming a human shield around the flag, their faces set with determination. "You'll have to go through us first," one of the veterans, a grizzled former Army surgeon, growled. The officers exchanged uneasy glances, clearly unsure of how to proceed. Karen, who had been lurking in the shadows, stepped forward, her face twisted with triumph. "Officers, these people are in violation of the HOA bylaws," she declared, her voice dripping with self-righteousness. "I demand that you arrest them all and take down that flag immediately." The lead officer hesitated, his gaze darting between Emily, the veterans, and Karen. "Ma'am, I'm afraid I can't arrest these individuals simply for standing up for their beliefs. The flag is a symbol of our nation, and we have to respect that." Karen's face contorted with rage, and she stepped closer to the officer, her finger jabbing into his chest. "Do you have any idea who I am? I'm the president of this homeowners association, and I'm ordering you to take that flag down, right now." The officer stood his ground, his expression hardening. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I can't comply with that order. This is a matter of freedom of expression, and I won't violate that, even on your say-so." Karen's face turned beet red, and she opened her mouth to unleash another tirade, but the sound of cheers and applause from the crowd drowned her out. The veterans had won this round, and the flag continued to fly proudly in Emily's front yard. As the police officers retreated, Emily caught the eye of the lead officer, moving a silent "thank you." She knew that this was only the beginning of the battle, but in that moment, she felt a surge of hope and pride that her fellow citizens, both veterans and civilians, were willing to stand up for her and the ideals she held dear. The fight was far from over, but Emily was more determined than ever to defend her flag and the principles it represented. In the aftermath of the police incident, the tension in the neighborhood reached a fever pitch. Karen, fuming with rage, doubled down on her efforts to have Emily's flag taken down, rallying other HOA members to her cause. "This is an outrage," she shouted at the next board meeting, her eyes wild with fury. "That flag is a blatant violation of our bylaws, and we can't let Emily get away with this. We have to take action, and we have to do it now." The other board members exchanged uneasy glances, some of them visibly uncomfortable with the direction the situation was taking. One board member, a soft-spoken retiree, spoke up timidly. "Karen, maybe we should consider a compromise. This flag means a lot to Emily and the veterans in our community. Perhaps we could find a way to accommodate it while still maintaining the integrity of our bylaws." Karen's response was swift and merciless. "Accommodated? Are you kidding me? This is about upholding the rules, not catering to the whims of a few overly patriotic misfits. If you're not with me on this, then you're against me." The board member shrunk back, his face flushing with embarrassment. The other members, cowed by Karen's forceful personality, remained silent, unwilling to challenge her. Emboldened by their acquiescence, Karen turned her attention to the local media, launching a relentless public relations campaign against Emily and her veteran supporters. She painted them as disruptive troublemakers, intent on undermining the very fabric of the community. "This is not about freedom of expression," Karen told a local news reporter, her face set in a stern expression. "This is about maintaining order and upholding the rules that everyone in this neighborhood has agreed to follow. Emily is putting her personal interests above the greater good of the community, and we simply can't allow that to happen." The media coverage, fueled by Karen's skillful manipulation, began to sway public opinion. Suddenly, Emily and her veteran supporters found themselves on the defensive, forced to constantly justify their actions and fight against the narrative that they were the villains in this drama. As the battle raged on, Emily's financial resources began to dwindle, the daily fines taking a heavy toll. She knew that she couldn't keep this up forever, but the thought of surrendering her flag and her principles was simply unthinkable. Determined to find a way to turn the tide, Emily reached out to a local civil liberties organization, hoping to enlist their support. With their help, she began to explore legal avenues to challenge the HOA's actions, setting the stage for an epic courtroom showdown that would pit the principles of freedom against the tyranny of an unrelenting homeowners association. As the legal battle heated up, Emily found herself thrust into the national spotlight. News of her courageous stand against the tyrannical HOA began to spread, and soon she was inundated with messages of support from veterans and patriots across the country. "Keep fighting, Emily." One message read, "You're standing up for all of us who serve this country. We're with you all the way." The outpouring of support buoyed Emily's spirits, but the daily grind of the legal battle was taking a toll. The fines continued to mount, and she found herself dipping into her life savings just to keep the flag flying. Karen, on the other hand, seemed to thrive on the attention. She made regular appearances on local news channels, painting herself as the defender of community standards and accusing Emily of being an attention-seeking troublemaker. "This isn't about the flag, it's about Emily's blatant disregard for the rules we all agreed to follow," Karen told one reporter, her eyes narrowed with disdain. "She's putting her own personal agenda above the greater good of the neighborhood, and we simply can't allow that." But Emily's legal team was not about to back down. They argued passionately that the HOA's bylaws violated Emily's First Amendment rights, and that her display of the American flag was a protected form of free speech. "This isn't just about a flag," the lead attorney, a seasoned civil rights lawyer, told the judge during the opening arguments. "It's about the very principles that this country was founded upon: the right to express our patriotism, to stand up for our beliefs, and to challenge those who would seek to suppress our freedoms." The courtroom was packed, with veterans and supporters filling the gallery, their faces etched with determination. Karen, sitting at the defense table, glared defiantly at Emily, her fingers drumming nervously on the table in front of her. As the proceedings unfolded, the judge listened intently, his brow furrowed in concentration. Emily sat in the witness stand, her voice calm and unwavering, as she recounted her experiences as a veteran and her unwavering commitment to the flag. "This flag is more than just a piece of cloth," Emily said, her eyes shining with emotion. "It's a symbol of the sacrifices made by countless men and women who have fought and died to protect the freedoms we all enjoy. I can't, and I won't, let it be taken down without a fight." The closing arguments were impassioned, with both sides presenting their case with conviction. As the judge retired to consider his verdict, the tension in the courtroom was palpable. The outcome of this case would have far-reaching consequences, not just for Emily, but for the very ideals that had shaped her life and the lives of so many others. The courtroom fell silent as the judge entered the room, his face inscrutably neutral. Karen, sitting at the defense table, leaned forward, her knuckles white with tension. Emily, flanked by her veteran supporters, steeled herself for the verdict, her heart pounding in her chest. The judge cleared his throat and began to speak, his voice measured and deliberate. "This case has been a complex and deeply personal one, with strong arguments on both sides. On the one hand, we have the Homeowners Association and its president, Karen, who argue that the display of the American flag violates the community's bylaws and must be removed. On the other hand, we have Emily, a proud veteran who has fought to defend the very freedoms that the flag represents." The judge paused, his gaze sweeping across the room. "After careful consideration, I have come to the conclusion that the Homeowners Association's actions in this case constitute a clear violation of Emily's First Amendment rights. The display of the American flag, especially by a veteran who has served our country, is a protected form of free speech, and cannot be arbitrarily suppressed by a private organization, regardless of its own bylaws." A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom, and Emily felt a surge of relief and triumph. Karen, on the other hand, looked as if she had been struck by lightning, her face a mask of disbelief and outrage. Furthermore, the judge continued, I find the HOA's actions in this case to be an egregious abuse of power, driven by the personal vendetta of its president, Karen, against a member of the community. The fines imposed on Emily are hereby declared null and void, and the HOA is ordered to cease all efforts to have the flag removed. Karen sprang to her feet, her face flushed with anger. Your Honor, you can't be serious. This is an outrage. We have bylaws to uphold, and Emily has blatantly disregarded them. This decision is a travesty of justice. The judge raised a hand, silencing her. I'm well aware of the HOA's bylaws, Ms. Karen, and I stand by my decision. The First Amendment takes precedence, and Emily's right to display the American flag on her own property is protected by the Constitution. This case is closed. As the gavel slammed down, the courtroom erupted in cheers and applause. Emily, tears streaming down her face, embraced her veteran supporters, their faces alight with joy and pride. Karen, defeated and humiliated, stormed out of the courtroom, her shoulders hunched with rage. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. As Emily watched the flag fluttering in the breeze outside her home, she knew that the fight for freedom would never end, and that she would always be ready to defend it, no matter the cost. In the aftermath of the court victory, Emily's neighborhood became a symbol of resistance against the tyranny of homeowners associations. The story of her brave stand for the American flag had captured the nation's attention, inspiring veterans and patriots across the country to stand up for their rights. Karen, humiliated and furious, refused to accept defeat. She vowed to appeal the court's decision, determined to have the last word in this bitter feud. But her efforts were met with a groundswell of support for Emily, as the community rallied behind the veteran who had risked everything to defend the principles they all held dear. As the appeal process dragged on, Emily's legal team worked tirelessly to defend her position. They argued passionately that the HOA's actions were not just a violation of her First Amendment rights, but a betrayal of the very values that the American flag represented. This isn't about a flag, Your Honor, the lead attorney declared in the appeals court. It's about the fundamental freedoms that our nation was built upon: the freedom of expression, the freedom to dissent, and the freedom to stand up against those who would seek to oppress us. Emily's actions have become a rallying cry for people across this country who refuse to let their liberties be taken away. The appeals court listened intently, their faces grave and contemplative. As the proceedings drew to a close, the judges retired to deliberate, leaving Emily and her supporters to wait with bated breath. After what felt like an eternity, the judges returned, their verdict etched in stone. The decision of the lower court is upheld, the chief judge announced, his voice ringing out with authority. The display of the American flag on Emily's property is a protected form of free speech, and the Homeowners Association is hereby permanently enjoined from taking any further action to have it removed. The courtroom erupted in cheers and applause, with Emily's veteran supporters embracing one another, their faces alight with triumph. Karen, her last avenue of recourse exhausted, stormed out of the courtroom, her face a mask of bitter defeat. As the sun set on the neighborhood, Emily stood in her front yard, the flag fluttering proudly in the evening breeze. She knew that the battle had been won, but the war for freedom would never truly end. Still, she took solace in the knowledge that she had stood her ground, and that her actions had inspired others to do the same. This flag, she whispered, a smile tugging at the corners of her lips, is a symbol of everything we fought for. And I'll be damned if I ever let anyone take it down. With that, Emily turned and headed back into her home, secure in the knowledge that the American flag would continue to fly high over her neighborhood, a testament to the power of individual courage and the enduring spirit of a nation that would never be silenced.